All right, let's go ahead and get started. Today we're doing lecture 2. This is going to be all about order of operations. If you haven't done so yet, go ahead and take out a sheet of paper and follow along with me. Trust me, it'll be fun. Okay, so let's go ahead and just get started on some definitions and some notes and things like that. And then we'll get into the problem sets and then the classwork. So if you haven't done so yet already, there is a Google form that was due yesterday. If you haven't done the Google form yet, go ahead and do that right after this lecture so you can be on it. The Google form that was supposed to be due yesterday. All right. Now, this week, you're actually going to have two different assignments. You're going to have an order of operations classwork, and then you're going to have another classwork, which we're going to be talking about on Wednesday. But today, we're going to be talking about order of operations. So let's talk about that. So the order of operations, go ahead and be writing this down. It's just a way to evaluate expressions in a certain order. Now, you've learned from grade school that there is an acronym that you can use to help you remember the order. It's called Pemdas. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, right? Or at least that's what I was taught. I don't know what they taught you guys. But all the letters are going to stand for something. Now, the P is going to stand for parentheses. Parentheses. Now, when I talk about parentheses, I'm talking about these little curvy brackets right here. You've probably seen those before. This is actually called a grouping symbol. Well, actually, it's a specific type of grouping symbol that we're going to talk about. So those are parentheses. That's one type of grouping symbol, but you've probably also seen straight brackets. Straight brackets are going to kind of look like this. They're a little bit higher order than regular parentheses. You'll also see those. And then the last type of grouping symbol that you'll probably see is the braces. Does anybody have braces on their teeth? These are called braces. That's really the highest order of grouping symbols you'll ever see, is the braces. Okay. Now, typically the order that they go is you'll have a set of braces, and then you'll have these straight brackets that go inside there like this. And then inside the brackets, you'll have the regular parentheses. So that's generally the order in which they go. And you're typically going to be doing these first because the order of operations is going to start off with parentheses and then it's going to go down from there. So the P stands for parentheses and then the E stands for exponents. Exponents. Now, you've probably seen exponents before. Typically, you'll have a variable like X or Y. And then above the X, there'll be a tiny number called the exponent, like 2. So you would have x squared, or maybe you've seen x cubed, where the exponent is 3. Maybe you've seen x to the 4th power, or maybe just regular x to the 1st power. But these are called exponents. These are just little numbers that indicate how many x's there are. So the 2 means that there are 2 x's, the 3 means that there are 3 x's, the 4 means there are 4 x's, and then the 1 means there's only 1 x there. So the exponents tell you how many variables you have in an expression. And typically what you're going to be doing is you're going to be squaring, cubing, and taking something to the 4th power.
Please pardon the interruption. If you are not parked in the first 2 rows coming into the teacher's lot, you need to please move your vehicles immediately. That's basically from where the handicap parking is up to the tennis courts and over. Thank you.
Okay. So those are exponents. And then the M stands for multiplication. That's the next thing that I want to talk about, multiplication. Today, when you see multiplication, you're going to see a regular dot. So if I wanted to do 3 times 4, I would be writing 3.4 or 3 times 4. Whichever way you do it, that's going to be called multiplication. Now, the cousin to multiplication is division. That's what I want to talk about next. When you see division, typically you're going to see either a fraction bar or you're going to see a division symbol, which kind of looks like this, if you remember. That's division. Now, these two operations, multiplication and division, they're opposites of each other. So they're going to kind of go together. We're going to be doing these from left to right. I'll show you what that means in a few minutes. But you're going to be doing multiplication and division from left to right. Now, some people think that multiplication always comes before division. That is not true, not even in the least bit. Multiplication does not always come before division. Sometimes division comes first, so you need to be aware of that. Okay, let's talk about the last two letters, A and S. That stands for addition and subtraction. So you would have something like x plus y or y plus x, same thing. And then S stands for subtraction. So you would see x minus y or y minus x. These two operations are also opposites of each other, and they are done from left to right. Addition does not always come first. Sometimes you might be subtracting before adding. So addition does not always come first. Just like when we did multiplication and division, multiplication does not always come first. Division sometimes comes first. But we're going to do these two operations from left to right. Okay? I'll leave this up there for a little bit so you guys can copy that down, and then we'll move on to the next slide and we'll do some math together. So this is the order of operations. You're really just going in order from P to E and then MD and AS. You start with parentheses and then you move on to exponents and then to the rest of the stuff. So you're starting at the top and you're moving down. So over here, you're starting at the top of the pyramid, you're starting at the top, and then you're moving down. You start off with P, and then you move on down until you get to the A and then the S. Okay? Let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. Let's do a couple examples together. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to do exponents. We're going to try these three together. Okay, so when you do exponents, you really have as many variables as the exponent tells you. Up here, we know that we're squaring 8. That means we have two 8s right beside each other. And then when we multiply them, we get 8 times 8, which is 64. So that's going to be our answer for the first one, 64. Let's move on to the next one. Notice that the exponent is 3. So that means we have 3 5s, 5, 5, 5, all separated by multiplication symbols. So if I do 5 times 5, I know that that's going to give me 25. But then if I multiply by 5 again, I'm going to get 125. So my answer is going to be 125. So this is called cubing. Cubing. Whereas the last one was called squaring. Squaring. That's what happens if you have an exponent of 2. Now, if your exponent is 3, that's called cubing. And then when your exponent is 4, we don't really have a good word for that. So we just write out how many 2's there are. And since there are 4 2's, we know that there are going to be 4 2's written out like this. So we can write out 4 of them, and then we can start multiplying them. So I know that these 2's are going to give me 4. And I know that these 2's are also going to give me 4, right? So I pair them up. I get 4 times 4. So let me put my dot in between. And then 4 times 4 is 16. So that's going to be my answer, 16. So that's how you do exponents. And I start with that because you're going to need it for the problems that we're about to do. Okay? All right. I'll leave that up there for a little bit, and then we'll move on to the next couple problems. Okay, let's try number 4 together. 8 minus 4 in parentheses times 2. So when we do order of operations, we start with parentheses first. That's what Pemdas tells us. So we're going to start off with this first. What's inside parentheses? We have 8 minus 4. And we know that 8 minus 4 is just 4, right? And then I bring down the rest of the stuff. So I need to bring down this dot that's in the middle, but I also need to bring down this 2. And now I'm ready to do exponents. We don't have any exponents, so we can skip exponents. And then I go down to m, which stands for multiply, right? 4 times 2 is 8. And since there's nothing left to do, we're done. So that's number 4. Okay, let's do 5. Let's do number 5. Now I'm taking most of these from the problem sets, if you're wondering where I'm taking these from, not the classwork. You'll have to do that on your own. But let's try this one together. So I want to start off with P first. That's parentheses. We don't have any grouping symbols. We don't have any parentheses like in the last one, so we can skip that. Let's go straight on to exponents. Do we have any exponents? Yes, we do. We got one right here. So I'm going to do that first. What's 6 squared going to be? 6 squared is 6 times 6. That is 36. 36, right? So we do that first, and then we bring down the rest of the stuff later. So I need to bring down the 4 times 7 and the minus sign in the middle, and then the divided by 3 at the end. I just bring all that stuff down, and then I move on to the next step, which is multiplication. So now we're ready to multiply. What can we multiply together? Well, we can multiply the 4 times 7, right? We get 28. But then I have to bring down the rest of the stuff. So now we're done with multiplying. Now we move on to division. That's the next thing we're going to do. So what can we divide? Well, I've got a 36 divided by 3. We can do that. 36 divided by 3 is 12. So I'm going to have 28 minus 12. So now division is done. We move on to addition and subtraction. 28 minus 12 is 16. And we're done. 16 is the answer. So we're doing the order of operations. We start at the top with parentheses, and then we just move down, going through each step, making sure that we accomplish everything in each step before moving on. Let's try 2 more, and then we'll call it a day. All right, let's try 6. 6 is going to be 12 divided by 3 times 5 minus 2 cubed. So we're going to try this one next. All right. So parentheses comes first. Do we have any parentheses? No. So we can check that off. Next, we move on to exponents. Do we have any exponents? Yes, we do, right? We've got 2 cubed. And we know that 2 cubed is going to give me 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep everything the same, but I'm going to replace that 2 cubed with an 8. And that's really all that's been done so far. It's just the exponents. Okay, so now we're ready to get into the multiplication and division. But what comes first? The division or the multiplication? Which one comes first? Do you know? Well, there's a simple way to tell, right? Remember when I said we go from left to right? We start at the left and then we go to the right. So we're going to start with whatever on the left side. So we're actually going to do the division first. So let's do the division first. Remember when I said we don't always do multiplication first? This is one of those times. So what's 12 divided by 3? Wouldn't that just be 4? So 12 divided by 3 is going to give me 4. And then I bring down the rest of the stuff. Now let's do multiplication. 4 times 5 is going to give me 20. I bring down the minus 8. So now multiplication and division are done, and I move on to addition and subtraction. And then 20 minus 8, that's going to give me 12. That's it. Once you get to a single number, like 12, you're done. Okay. I want to do one more with you, and then I'll let you go to try the problem set and the classwork. Let's try number 7. Number 7. We're going to do 3 squared divided by 3 plus 2 squared times 7 minus, in parentheses, 20 divided by 5. Squared. All right, so while you're writing that down, I'll write this off to the side so we know what we're starting off with. Okay, so let's do parentheses first. Do we have parentheses? Yes. Yes, we do. We got 20 divided by 5 inside parentheses. And 20 divided by 5, that's going to give me 4. But that 4 is going to be squared on the outside, right? So I'm still going to have a squared. I'm still going to have a minus out in front of it. Whoops. There we go. And then everything else stays the same. You still got the 7, the 2 squared, and then everything else. So parentheses, done. Exponents. We have a lot of exponents, don't we? What's 3 squared? That's going to give me 9. Keep everything else the same. 2 squared, that's going to give me 4. Keep everything else the same. And then 4 squared, that's going to give me 16. So now we can say exponents are done. Now we move on to multiplication and division. And we do this from left to right. So starting on the left side, we have 9 divided by 3. That's just going to give us 3. I keep the plus the same. And now let's move on to multiplication. 4 times 7 is 28. And I bring down the minus 16. So now all that's left to do is to add and subtract. And once again, we do these from left to right. So we start on the left and we move to the right. What are we doing on the left side? We're doing 3 plus 28. That is 31. Bring down the minus 16. And then 31 minus 16, that should give you 15. And you're done. So that is order of operations. And if you follow all the steps in order, you should be able to get these answers no problem. Okay?